So.
Well,
Alex Al just
we should be up. We should be up and running. Facebook, if you can hear us. Instagram, if you can hear us. YouTube, if you can hear us.
Wow.
Where's the live link at, Spiffy?
Hold on a second. Let me get everything together, and I will tag you in it, or I'll put it in the chat or something.
You seeing this?
Yeah, I just joined on Instagram.
Okay.
How's it look on Instagram, Kim?
It's like people aren't centered, or maybe it's my phone.
Yeah, no, that's just the way that it is. Instagram crops us funny. I was hoping it wouldn't, but so we already got some people watching. We got 18 people watching already. We're going to officially get started at about 7:05. In the meantime, we're just going to talk crap and just kind of give everybody a chance to get here.
Okay.
But people are already here. We already got 20 people.
I can only see 2.
I can't see any.
It should be in the upper left-hand corner, right at where it says how many minutes we've been on the air. There should be an I with a number, and that's how many are watching, and then a thumbs up with a number. That's how many liked it.
Yeah, I don't
see none of that.
Yeah, I think that's just for you.
Oh, I thought everybody could see it. Okay. Well,
how would you know?
You got the Wizard of Oz control.
Right.
Yeah. So
he's in the booth, Mike.
Right.
Let me get on the post on my page and start tagging everybody so you can share it, and then I will share it myself, and then we'll be ready once everybody gets in.
So hello to 7, but meaning 7:05. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, I want to give people a chance to get here, and as you mentioned earlier, folks be tardy.
You trying to pad the schedule? Is that intended in our direction?
It's intended in everybody's direction, Michael.
All right, I'm just checking.
Suggested by you starting late today.
So
how shall we interpret that?
This is our schedule every week. We're going to try to get on at about 6:55, and then actually start the serious conversation at like 5 after.
Yeah, it was 05 last week too.
Yeah. So I'm sending the link in everybody's inbox, and then I'm going to tag you in a comment. So we can get everybody together. Somebody dinged. Yeah, somebody got me.
I need to turn my stuff down so you don't know it's coming from me.
I just told everybody, just make sure you mute the porn in the background. That's the only thing. Everything else can stay, but keep all the heathen stuff out of it in case any people from my church watch.
My people watch that.
I told Dan you had to turn your beans. You had to get your beans off the stove. Yo, hold up my beans, man.
Wait, okay. Am I supposed to invite people to watch this, or what am I supposed to do?
Well, I would just make sure you share it, but then also if you want to invite people, by all means, anything you want to do to make sure that people see it is helpful.
Okay.
Well, let's see.
But then once you're done, make sure you close the window, because right now I'm hearing it from everybody.
That ain't me.
Or just mute it.
That's not me. That's got to be somebody else.
Yeah, show wasn't.
So did everybody get the post so they can share it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna share it to my story, and I'm gonna share it to my other pages as well, and then we should be fully shared. And by the way, anybody watching, y'all should go ahead and share it as well. We want to get as many people in the conversation as we can. 42 people so far. I hope y'all stay with us. Again, we're going to start official at about 7:05. This is just, hanging out among friends and new friends in the meantime. So I'm going to... Thank you, everybody, for joining Michael and myself. This is the highlight of my week. And I'm not even exaggerating. The last one went so well that this is what I've been looking forward to all week. And then, hopefully it'll be the same for next week. But this one's definitely going to be special because I've been wanting to, talk to some people who actually saw some of the things that I saw on a screen. So, oops, that's the wrong thing. How do I? I'm trying to do it myself. So somebody say something for the people while I'm trying to screw up
Hello,
things.
people. How you doing out there? Yeah, hey, okay, do it like what's that show? Romper Room. I see Andrew. I see Teresa, Nia, Clinton, Nelson. The Glossary. Who's that?
That's my wife's business account.
She's covering us from 2 accounts.
Yep. She's our biggest fan.
No, all right. Apparently,
She don't want to miss nothing.
No, I mean, why would you? All this wisdom that's about to get spit today, and me.
Let me get on Facebook here and see what that is not, there's,
what?
That's not your wife. There's no way that's your wife.
Which one?
The one who's listed as your wife?
That's my wife. Michael's met my wife. Greg might have even too. I don't remember.
That's her.
Did you make a deal with the devil?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to stay out of this discourse.
It was worth it too.
That'd be her.
Okay. I'm share now.
Okay. Are we ready?
Give me just a minute. I'm going to make sure my windows are closed here so I'm not getting any dinging and things as well, just like everybody else. Okay, so we got 62 people watching. We got a whole bunch of comments. We got and we got 1 minute to 7:05. Do we want to start early or do we want to?
Well, if it's 1 till 7:05, we're already late.
1 minute.
You're on time. You're late.
Okay.
Well, we decided at 7 that we're starting.
Right.
You can't tell people 7 and expect them to show up at 7.
Come on, host. Introduce us so we can get going.
Okay. Well, you're co-host, but so first of all, I'll start. Let me put the computer here on the table. So I will introduce Michael, because that's how we did it last time. Michael introduces me, and then we'll introduce our guests. Michael Bland is one of my favorite people in the world. He has been ranked by many drum publications as the best drummer in the world. If you're in any way even remotely a Prince fan, you've seen him in Prince videos, as he was with Prince from '89 pretty much till the end, off and on. And he also has been a member of alternative rock band Soul Asylum for the past 15 years. So he's a musical legend. And he's one of my favorite people to discuss music stuff with and non-music stuff. And so I'm really, really glad that he agreed to do this with me. I couldn't think of anybody else that I wanted to do it with. And he's one of my favorite people. And so I'm very, very glad to have him here. Now he's going to lie and say nice things about me.
Well, what can I say about Dan Spiffy Neuman that has not been said already? Rabble rouser, troublemaker, barbecue eater.
True.
Anointed musician.
Shabba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Shabba-ba-ba.
Shondo.
A great friend. Generous to a fault. Yeah, if I didn't really love him, I wouldn't have let him talk me into doing this.
Very true.
That's I'll introduce the gentleman to I guess my left, my right.
I'm not sure how it's shown for people.
Yeah, many names. Gregory, Jabot, Barack G. You know him. You've seen him. If you haven't seen him, he's seen you. Ladies and gentlemen, the auspicious occasion, we all owe a great debt to Gregory Washington for joining us today. He was actually down at the protest, at the rally. He's going to let us know the inside scoop. What you actually saw with your own eyes is what I'm interested in, Gregory. and we're going to get to that. But will you please introduce our other guests before we get into all that?
Absolutely. I'll be happy to do that. So a close friend of Michael's and myself, and somebody who's also been a part of the Minneapolis protests since the very first day, Mr. Charles Hayes, may or may not pop in tonight. And if he doesn't, we'll definitely talk to him at a later date. But when we were talking to him about doing this show with us, he mentioned that he had a daughter that had been down there with him since the beginning and had been even more involved in the protests than he was. And so Michael and I have had the opportunity just now to meet his lovely daughter, Jazmin, who has also been very active in the Minneapolis protest scene the past couple weeks, and also been down there just about every day for every, important turn of events. And, we're going to get some firsthand viewpoints and opinions from people who literally were there and were literally on the front lines and a part of things. And I'm so grateful that Jazmin and Jabot agreed to do this with us today. Marak Jabot. A couple of quick points of order real quick before I forget. Number one is, so we're streaming today to Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. If you're watching us on Instagram, there's no good way to do it with Instagram. So if you comment on Instagram, we won't see the comment till later if we see it at all, and it kind of crops up the screen. So if you're watching us on Instagram, feel free to come to YouTube or Facebook, and you'll get a better view. You'll see all of my beautiful face instead of whatever part Instagram cropped. And if you want us to actually see your comment, and when we start taking questions, we might put some of them on the screen. Let me take down the one that says that we're starting at 7:05 because we started. So the other thing is, we'll probably for the first hour or so, we'll actually discuss things among ourselves. I'm not going to say I won't keep an eye on the comments or put one up occasionally, but for the most part, we're not going to get to the questions and things right away. And then for the second half, we'll start paying more attention to the questions that people have for anybody that's here. Michael took a lot of music questions last time. I took some music questions. Last point of order, and I don't know if this is true for anybody other than myself. I'm pretty sure it's also true for Michael. So after last week, I got inundated with friend requests on Facebook. I would love to accept them all, but I'm full. So please follow me, follow my music page. You can feel free to send a friend request. I might get to it and make room eventually, but just don't take it personal if I don't.
People always, you got to shake out of the weeds and say, oh, unfriend. You do 5 to 10 unfriends a day, so you must have room for some people.
I don't know about 5 to 10 a day. I definitely work on whittling it down, but then there's 300 new requests a day. So,
all right.
So, okay. Well, how do we want to start this off? How do we want to get from lightness to serious topics?
Well, Jazmin, you want to tell me what you've been up to in terms of since George Floyd was murdered? It would be great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. So the first few days the first 2 days, I didn't go out. I didn't know what to do, where to start. And I sat in my house with shame. Like I just felt like I needed to be out there. I couldn't just sit and hide. I had several people ask me not to go. But then, let's see, I started out going to the government building, doing some protesting, went out with my sign, went out with a few people that I knew. That was one of the things that was important to me, was to go out with other people in case something were to happen to me.
Yes.
You want somebody to, maybe be able to do something or at least get it on tape, right? So I had someone to go with, went out to the government building for a peaceful protest. I can't remember what date this was on, but we were marching downtown. And when we got near the 90s, the gay 90s nightclub, we could go no further because our peaceful marching and chanting was met with gas. And one thing that I have been trying to get out there to the people, and so I'll say it right off of the bat, is I was out there for several days from early day until the wee hours of the morning. And every time that I saw it escalate and turn from marching and chanting and talking about what we needed as a community coming together, to violence between the police and the community, it seemed what sparked that off every time I saw it, because I was on the front lines each time I was out there, was a Caucasian man, usually between the age of like 20 and 35, throwing a water bottle at the police. Every time I saw it, that was what sparked it off. And then the violence just ensued from there, because rubber bullets, mace, tear gas.
Yeah.
We got it all.
Wow.
So I'm sorry. Just for those allies who are out there, like, know your community and know what the message you're trying to send is. That's what I want to get out there right away.
Mm.
Okay. I want to go back just a little bit. I wanted to ask you something before, and it slipped my mind. I just because you're new to us, you're a new member of our fold. Mike and I have both known Greg for a long time. So I wanted to do a little bit of biography first, and I kind of got off of that. So is this the first time that you've protested, or do you have a history of getting involved?
This is the first time that I've had the opportunity to be in the middle of it. I've gotten involved in other ways, but I'm not from a metropolitan area originally. So yeah, this is my first time in this capacity.
So everything that you've described up until this point was essentially new to you. Like, it wasn't like, okay, last time we protested peacefully, this didn't happen, and this time it did. This was all, from start to finish, was a whole new experience.
Yes.
And so was there a day at the beginning where things were peaceful from start to finish, or was it pretty much that there were people there antagonizing from the first day that you were out there?
I did not see anything I guess the first day was mostly peaceful, but peaceful protests were met with gas canisters. Mm-hmm. We have police who are specifically trained to be afraid of us. So, what are you going to do when that's your training? Because I don't personally believe in the all cops are bad. But I do believe that the training is bad. I mean, look at you've got David. For anyone out there who doesn't know the name David Grossman, he is a man who was in the military, never saw active duty, never was a police officer, but somehow ended up creating a science or a research type thing. He calls it killology, is what he calls it. And if you've never heard of the trainings that the police take called bulletproof, that is him doing those trainings. training them on his philosophy of killology, which basically teaches them be scared and shoot first. Don't de-escalate because you won't go home. And he's been training hundreds of departments, thousands of police officers for over 20 years. I recommend when you're done with this, going and checking out, there's actually a podcast called Behind the Bastards that was recently released that talks all about it.
Wow.
So I have a question that's kind of a rhetorical question, and it's really for anybody to answer here. But so I've been involved in some protests before for this kind of stuff, for Black Lives Matter stuff, for teachers unions and pro LGBTQ and all kinds of different causes that I'm passionate about. And I have definitely seen people throw water bottles at the police before. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, or I'm not advocating for that, but I've definitely seen protests that were largely peaceful, but the idea of aggressive littering is what I'll call it, something that's not a harmful thing, being thrown in the direction of the police, is not a entirely uncommon thing. I'm wondering what's different about in this case that's all it took. But you also said that they were ready with the tear gas before the water bottles started. They were tear gassing you guys before anybody did anything even remotely that wasn't peaceful.
I would disagree with that statement about things being thrown at every protest, because I've been protesting since Rodney King back in the 90s, and I went to the protests every day from the day after George Floyd was killed, and I went to multiple protests within the same day. I went to 38th in Chicago. I went to Mike Freeman's house and 51st and Oliver. I went to 34th and Nicollet. I went to Lake Street and what is that? Lake Street and 31st. Lake Street, is that? I don't know where the Wells Fargo was burnt down on Lake Street.
Oh,
I was there when that started on fire.
Oh, no.
I wasn't there then, but I went the day after. I was there for the protest then, and then I was back at Mike Freeman's house at various times throughout the day, and not one protest did I attend was there agitators or folks that were throwing stuff. And I think, I went to the 3rd precinct. At all the places that I went to, the most aggravated site was the 3rd precinct. This was pre-burning. And I take that back. Before the protest started at Chicago and 38th, and then they marched down to the 3rd precinct. Before the group that was marching from 38th and Chicago got there were a couple individuals that weren't protesting that had broke the window before they got there. So once the protesters arrived, the scene was kind of being put in place. That's kind of the route that it was going. I don't know who the people were. They weren't carrying signs or anything. I literally watched the dude throw the rock and smash the window before anybody had got there. They weren't even in the vicinity. The mass of the protesters weren't even in the vicinity. Somebody told them to stop. That's not what we're doing. And, and I would just say what I also noticed was the not misrepresentation, but Black Lives Matter is an actual organization that organizes protests, and they do stuff around the country. Well, that has also become a catchphrase. So it didn't matter what protest I was at, everybody was saying Black Lives Matter. So you had the Black Lives Matter group that had their outline of how they were going to do things here, but then you would go over there and everybody has Black Lives Matter signs and they're saying Black Lives Matter, And one would naturally assume, oh, that's Black Lives Matter, but it's not. They're just saying that. So that ambiguity has kind of caught on. So detractors as well as the actual protesters are using that, and it's labeled worldwide as if something gets tore up, Black Lives Matter did it. And because there were so many merging groups, it seemed like, doing things that emulated things that have happened in the past. Like, it was a new thing to protest marching on the freeway and shutting down traffic. Well, the day that the truck went down the freeway on the traffic, that wasn't the Black Lives Matter group that organized that. That was a different group. I didn't know that until my daughter told me, because she was on that freeway that day. But so I think it's important that conversations are being had to specify what actually is happening. And I think the positive thing that you can take away from everything is the fact that there's white people a part of Black Lives Matter organization in general is the only thing, in my opinion, based upon the media, that has charged a new conversation that, oh, those aren't Black people probably, or those aren't the majority of Black people that are tearing stuff up.
Right.
That's, other folks. Because in general, it would be, oh, you're the one that has a problem. You're the one that likes attention for Black people. You're the one that's tearing it up. And that's almost the opposite. So that's what I mean. And from feedback that I've gotten, like from what Jazmin has said, whether you protest earlier in the day or late at night, I think it was very different as things changed at night, because detractors were able to blend in easier after dusk. During the day, I was there. I'm watching people cook food. I'm giving away water. Kids are there, whether they're newborn infants strapped to their mom's chest, to, teenagers walking around protesting, to everything, elderly people in wheelchairs and motorized wheelchairs. And later in the day, it became a little more hard to kind of predict who you were in the crowds with. And I know, and when you have charged emotions like you did with that, it doesn't take much for somebody to want to tear something up and it to have a ripple effect to the people that may have intended to be peaceful. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, your emotions are charged. Jazmin said she went out, she had to stay home for a couple of days. I think I heard you basically say you were kind of processing through what you had experienced from, what was going on. I felt helpless, like I had to do something. So if I could maybe ignite some people around to see how serious it is to me and, my family, then maybe, the conversation can continue. Because my biggest fear is right now, you have corporations sending money, you have corporations sending you emails, telling you how they're devoted to diversity. And we're going to give $100 million to diversity or to Black this or but. Well, I don't know where that's going, and I don't know who's going to facilitate it. But what it reminds me of is when I started working in corporate America in the mid 90s, and the big issue was sexual harassment, because more women were in the C-suite and they were starting to enter more corporate fields, and they were being mistreated for being women. And so lawsuits were slinging all over the place. And so then you had to have a mandatory sexual harassment training, because companies were paying all kind of money out to women that were being mistreated in the workforce in the corporate level. And it seems just like that right now, where everything is turning into a racial thing. And so what we do as a company is we pay some money to whatever, and then we say we're committed to equity and diversity. That's the other buzz phrase. Equity, diversity, and equity. Equity and diversity, whether it's the school system or whether it's the corporate sector. They're adding a new job. We're going to have a czar of equity and diversity. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So my fear is business as usual comes after everybody kind of gets paid.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have training groups. You'll have people starting new nonprofits. You'll have, and I think historically in the Black community, you have leaders who get paid and then they're quiet. There's leaders that we know that I'll go without name that have been paid so their organizations don't raise issues that would cause them to have negative publicity. And so a lot of things, we don't know about police killing people because it happens every day. And unless it's on video, we don't know about it. Well, there's a lot of issues that these social justice groups that we support, that we know about, avoid because they're paid kind of to let things go away, whether it's Silicon Valley and Apple and Google, or whether it's Wall Street. So we can't necessarily depend on certain leaders to do everything for us. The conversation needs to be all over like it is, and for real change to exist and sustain itself. Otherwise, this is just going to be a COVID-19 pandemic where they kill Black people. We've seen it and we're outraged. This shouldn't happen. And then we get to business as usual as soon as they fix the construction and the street is back open.
Yeah, I've been ruminating over this for the last couple of days. The fact that so many, there's this outpouring of support on a corporate level, but it looks good, but it's also it's a business move. It's strong business. You can't be out of step with society and continue to earn, not on that level. So right now I'm struggling with the fact that all this money is coming in, and it feels to me like they're it's once again, it's the exploitation of Black pain is really what it is. It's going to come down to dollars eventually, however they swing it. It's going to be a come up for the company. So everybody's in it to serve themselves.
Well, the best parallel I can make is we just had COVID-19. And if you got a credit card, a car loan, a house, you got an email or a letter from that company that said, we're committed to being safe during COVID-19. We're ready to work with you. We're not, it's something informative from that company to tell you that we're concerned. Right?
Right.
The notices that I've been getting since George Floyd have been similar to that, where they come in nonstop, and it's almost like we're gonna plug a hole, we're gonna fix this problem, we're gonna make you happy, we're not gonna look like the racist company, we're gonna look like the company that's doing something about it. So, and then what happens when that's over with? What happens if everything goes as planned and, we can sacrifice these white officers? Maybe everybody will be quiet now. Right.
They're just interested in getting back to business.
And the point, it's bigger than just the 4 white officers. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So
I know that.
How does that message continue? When we had, Rodney King, and when we had different issues, when we had Philando Castile, we thought that was it. We thought, okay, maybe this can be changed. But as soon as some time passes, it's right back to where, okay, they got rid of the St. Anthony police or whoever was patrol. Okay, that's supposed to make it go away.
Well, what I'd like to see happen, or what I'd like to at least try, is what they've kind of been talking about doing, which is defunding and disbanding. It worked in Camden, New Jersey, and it could potentially work here. Right? So, in 2013, in 2012, Camden was one of the most dangerous cities in the US, considered one of the most dangerous cities in the US. But there were like 67, almost 70 murders from what I remember looking into. And then they disbanded their police force. They made it a countywide thing. There are actually now, they essentially fired everyone. And then people could reapply for their jobs, but only about 40% ended up coming back. They do have more police than they did previously, actually now. But the emphasis and the point of having more police is, one, so that the only interaction the community has with the police, and also the police have with the community, is not in like emergent situations. Mm-hmm. They're looking at community, being more involved with the community, and also the way that they train them is completely different from previous.
I think, and I don't know if disbanding the police is a good idea or not. I know Camden, New Jersey is a city that has a population of approximately 78,000, which is probably comparative to Plymouth or Golden Valley in Minnesota, rather than, the size of Minneapolis that has, 600,000. But I think I would be careful to not redo or emulate the system as we know it. So we're part of a system that functions well when it excludes us, right?
Yeah.
And typically laws are made when there's a big fear factor, right? So you got armed man that breaks into a house in the middle of the night and kills everybody in it and steals all the stuff out of it in Edina. So there's a new law that's made.
Well, it's the only reason we have gun laws in the first place is because the Panthers decided to carry them.
Right. So the laws are they're fear-based. We make, when the blood is running warm in your veins, we run out and we make a lot of laws that really have no long-term thinking plan of how they essentially will affect all of it. And so rather than be quick to do that, so there's a timeline. I can send it to Spiffy and maybe he can circulate it to you all. But it gives a timeline of the Minneapolis Police Department on highlighted stuff going back to like 17, whatever, all the way up until I think 2018. But if you take the time and read it, you'll notice how continuously over each decade, community is being dismantled. So when you have a law like Rich Stanek made, the representative at the time from Maple Grove, that says the talent pool is being, I'm paraphrasing, but basically you're not getting the best talent that wants to work in Minneapolis as police because your law on the book does not allow residents that aren't from Minneapolis or St. Paul to police in those cities. So the residency requirement should be abolished so you guys can get better people that want to be there. Mm-hmm. Well, he's from Maple Grove. The co-author's from Woodbury, and they're saying what's best for Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. So that means you got people that don't live there but want to work there. And there's a difference in living somewhere and being a part of the community.
That's right.
And going in someplace and working and then leaving. The same thing happens with the Minneapolis public school system. Mm-hmm. You got teachers that live in North Oaks that come and teach the urban kids in North Minneapolis, and they feel like they're doing them a service rather than connecting with community and understanding how community works. An example of community. If I was a police officer in Farmington or in some Iron Range place and I saw a group of white men in a pickup truck with big giant tires that were doing donuts and flipping up mud, as a police officer, I would say they're up to no good. They're probably intoxicated. All stereotypes. That's how I would approach them. Reverse it. Take a white officer from Farmington, put him in North Minneapolis on Broadway. He sees dark-skinned brother with gold teeth driving a purple 1967 Chevy Impala with 24-inch rims with spinners on. The car stops and the wheels keep spinning. And he can hear his music bumping while it's going past the McDonald's.
Right.
With tinted out windows. He's going to think what? He looks like he's up to no good. That must be a drug dealer. He can't be a car collector because stereotype. So that's how I approach the community that I don't know.
Sure.
Real quick, Greg, if you want to put that link in a comment right now, I can put it on the screen.
Oh, okay.
And that's why it's important. I think it's important not only for the police force to be a part of the community, but also to mirror the makeup of the community.
Yeah.
The police force has to be part of the community. There's a big.
I said not only, not instead of.
Oh yeah, and we're in agreement. It's like, you know, when the so I'll take the chief for instance. Everybody in the hood knows Rondo, not as a crooked cop, but just as a brother that's been a part of the city for a long time. People know his family. His last name sticks out like a sore thumb because most people can't say it. And it's like he's not a stranger. Just like, take, for instance, Charlie Adams, right? He used to escort the mayor. He's on the homicide division, but he's a Minneapolis police. You would see him at the Timberwolves game. You know his brother. He has a brother, and they're visible. You see them. Sure. When you see them at Red Lobster. You know, they're part of the community, right? Yeah. I'm driving one day in Brooklyn Park. I'm like, hey. He's like, hey. I think I drove by his house. But their faces are familiar, and they're not allowing lawlessness to exist, but it just has a different feel because you see them all the time. And
well, if you know your community, you won't needlessly fear it.
Right. I mean, the ironclad laws that exist going all the way to the Supreme Court that protect police officers are, to me, symbolic of the establishment of our country. Our country was established by Christopher Columbus, who claims to be a Spaniard, which that's a part of Europe, and he was funded by the Queen of England, that brought the lawlessness. He told the Queen, give me the criminals, give me the killers, the rapists, the drug addicts, get them out of jail. I'm going to take me on this maiden voyage. And that's what came into the country. So the way that they protected was guns. Mahmoud El-Qadi said the only thing that was allowed them to take over was the musket.
Yes.
And so that was their protection. We rule by the guns. So now, how do we interact with the foreign countries as the United States? What's our presence overseas? Our military. Our currency is not backed by gold like the euro or silver like the pound in Britain.
It's backed by force.
It's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, which is what? Our treasury, which is in debt. We print money. What does that mean? That means our military. If something goes wrong, we go with our guns. That's how we
first line of defense.
But that's how we manage. That's our currency. So the same way we manage our foreign relations with military is the way they manage the people in the United States with the guns and the police. So when a police officer, all he has to do is assert that he was in fear, which I wholeheartedly believe. The minute they wake up and put their clothes on and leave that door, they're scared.
Well, and that's why I mentioned David Grossman is they're taught to be scared.
Yeah.
And that might be the only other thing we have in common with them. Before I head out of my house, man, I got to consider what might happen. What could happen to me?
So, and bringing back Rich Stanek, which I keep saying, and I keep emphasizing that law over and over again because people somehow get amnesia. There's a case with Tysell Nelson back in the 90s that was at a party and he got shot in the back. And Rich Stanek was one of the officers that was on that night. I think he was supervising, and he made a racist comment about it. Those officers never, that was a big deal. Okay, that changed our lives forever. Who the same Rich Stanek went on to be a state representative, who went on to be the sheriff, and was forgiven in the community that he did not live in. That he basically, so when you see a Bob Kroll, you trace it back and you see Bob Kroll was enabled by a Rich Stanek. Mm-hmm. Because pre-Bob Kroll, you had what? Delmonico was not necessarily a bad guy, but he wasn't Bob Kroll. Just, a flat out racist.
Right.
I mean, so as things, it's just like Donald Trump. That just didn't happen overnight. Things get put in place. You got a Mitch McConnell that existed pre-Donald Trump.
Yeah, they've been stacking the deck the whole time.
So the real work happens in legislature that make these things happen, that make it harder to change later.
That's right.
It's almost like getting a court order in civil court where you're ordered to pay child support or something. The burden of proof before that order is on them. But once that order is made, you now have to prove why by a preponderance amount of evidence that thing should change. And so now, instead of people saying, hey, make Waltz repeal that law and then we go back or amend it to where it just is for police. I haven't heard that conversation one time.
No.
But so when they say, okay, dismantle the police, okay, everybody should reapply. What, they got 700-800 police officers? That doesn't seem like a hard feat. I mean, they're not getting the best of breed talent, which that law was supposed to do. It was supposed to get good talent that we were missing out on. Right?
Right.
Well, what's the definition of talent, though? What's their definition?
That didn't have to be defined because nobody was reading, nobody was thinking, this is going to potentially be a problem, because you have to think there's only so many representatives for Minneapolis.
Yeah.
The masses are everywhere and they don't look like us.
Oh, don't get me started on the representative system, okay? Because I can go all night. But one of the, oh God, I had a thought in my head. Okay. So one of the things I lost it. It'll come back to me. Good Lord, okay. I don't know what happened.
You didn't interrupt any of us. If
you said representative, and I was like, got steaming.
Saw red.
I got you.
It doesn't matter how many times somebody explains to me why the popular vote isn't just the vote.
Yeah,
I'll never understand.
Yeah, I mean, so to go back to what you were saying about dismantling the police, that may be a solution. I don't know, but I think we need to be careful with the things we put forward, so we're not emulating the system as it is. Because right now, the system creates based upon fear, based upon when calmer minds aren't prevailing, and usually it affects people of color in the worst way by the time it starts working its way through. So
I remember what I was going to say. So it's not only, that's why we're out there protesting, right? It's not only about hiring the right people. It's not only about training them correctly, but it is also about holding people responsible for what they did. I mean, if you look back at the Geneva Convention, right? There were people who were just doing what they were told. There were people who were not technically breaking the law, but they had to decide to punish them anyway because the crime was that horrific, right? So, anyway, what I was going to say is that because people are able to get away with it, it's always going to attract white supremacists. It's always going to attract predators because it's where they're able to prey. It's where they're able to do what they want to do already, but get away with it. And there aren't a whole lot of places where you can do that consequence free. It's the same reason why we have pedophiles in churches becoming priests. It's not, being a priest doesn't turn them into pedophiles. Pedophiles are attracted to that position because they're in a position where they can prey easily. So we need to take that away. We need to say, no, this isn't a place where you can easily prey. And that's, it's a shame. It's, the fact that the government hasn't done that, it shows how they feel about us.
Oh, sure. I think that
we all know.
A lot of the Klan members have been absorbed by the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they find some dude? They found like an application for the.
Well, you gotta if you go down memory lane and you think how the police in this country were established. I mean, Mike, you've traveled all over the world.
Well,
and I have too, and not one place that I've been other than United States has there been policing as we know it. You go in, whether it's in the Caribbean or whether it's in the Middle East, the police are there, but let me give you a comparison. We have police sitting waiting on the entrance ramp to see if you go through the insane lane and you don't wait if you don't have two people in the car. That's not a safety issue. Right? They could argue it's a traffic management issue, but it's not a safety. It's me checking because if you got, I get to give you a ticket because you don't have two people in the car.
Yeah.
You go to Mexico, you go to Cancun, you go to Bahamas. They have stoplights. Well, at night when it's late, the stoplight is there to manage traffic. It's blinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody there. You just keep driving. We'd have a cop sitting there waiting. Then you can argue, well, they have a lot of fatalities. No, the point is the police aren't going to spend their time micromanaging a device that was intended to keep you safe and wait for you to make a mistake.
Right.
So it's the whole phrase of policing. I have a list of rules and I sit there and watch for you to break one. That's policing versus we're a community. We don't want lawlessness, but me being a police does not set me aside so I can wait and disenfranchise just a group of people. Because honestly, how I have experienced it is these are the rules and they apply to you. That's why the white girl in the park in New York can call the police on the phone so boldly, knowing that all she has to do is say, there's a black man out here that's doing XYZ. Mm-hmm. And I'm scared. I'm a white female and this app. They're coming because society, and it's not said, but they know, white people know, as well as I do, if the police are called and it was her calling on him, before the dust settles, he's going to get arrested based upon her word. And he knows without that camera, he's going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Because the rules are for us. That's
right.
Why you can hear things said, put you in your place, make America great, take it back. That's why immigration is such a hot issue, because it's not just immigrants that are being reminded that they don't belong. It's the same thing we're doing to them.
Yeah.
We do to you every day. You just happen to have squeaked in because you were born here. But still, we make these rules that apply to you.
Oh yeah,
that's what we got.
I don't disagree.
So when we say disband the police, and there's people finally starting to listen, are they allowing us a few things like the corporations writing some checks so we just go away? Or are we making sustainable change to where we are all at the table? Because right now we're just fighting to get a seat at the table. We're not at the table. We keep making noise because they're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to throw out a little bit of positivity though on top of all this, and that is that it was very heartening when I was out there. The first night I was protesting. Everything after that, I wasn't out there protesting. What we were doing is we were spending our days loading up and getting supplies together and doing some supply drops and things like that. But we were spending our nights going out into the middle of it, or not even nights, like 6 on, going out into the middle of it with we had a nurse on deck. We had an entire van filled with bottled water. We had food, and we had medical supplies that we went out with. I saw communities come together to take care of each other. And we weren't the only ones out there who were doing that. And that was really, as I said, heartening when I would see.
So I think the biggest thing that's missing in all the conversations is the reminder of humanity.
Well,
when we see somebody hurting on the street or something, it does something. It reminds us of humanity. You can see your kids, you can see your relative, right? And there hasn't been a catastrophic event that I've witnessed from Rodney King to 9/11 to this, where people don't come together, white, black, and they do stuff for each other, whether it's food, it's supplies. And I think that's great. I mean, I don't think that we ever are denied that. White people love buying stuff and giving it away when they
Now, with that being said, though, we will clearly.
But that being said, in order for this movement, in order for sustainable change to happen, we need the white people. We need the kids. We need the Latinos. We need the Native Americans. We need everybody, because it's not just a one-person fight. But in that, we don't need the white people telling us what we need.
Right.
So we're at the point now, which is not being relayed enough. It's stop dictating what you think I need and listen to what I tell you I need.
Please.
Right? So here's an example. One time we were playing a gig. Mike might not remember this, but I had a keyboard player. Baby D was playing with us in the band, and we had an organ. And I said, well, you want me to bring the keyboard too? And he's like, no, I just play that. And I said, but you need a keyboard. No, he said, Mike said, look, man, he just told you what he wanted. He said he wants that. Stop asking him if he wants to play something else. We have spoken. We said what we wanted. Al Sharpton said it great. We didn't ask for a step up.
Yeah.
We didn't ask for affirmative action.
Right.
We had to get that because of what you were doing with the rules that you made.
Right.
We can pull our own way.
Just get out of the way.
I don't need a co-signer on my loan. I got my own credit.
Yeah, just on the
I don't need special black credit.
Yes.
I just need you when I go to the bank and my number says 700 to 800 and the white guy next to me says 700 to 800 or 600 to 700. You approve mine the same way you do his.
That's right.
That's all I need.
Well, and what we always hear, right, is I don't dislike your message. I just dislike how you're doing it. I just dislike that you disrespected the flag by kneeling. I just dislike that that protests turn into riots. But Martin Luther King Jr. said riots are the voice of the unheard, right? So if it start listening to the message,
we won't
and stop telling us that we're delivering the message incorrectly.
Well, Jazmin, so the fact that you feel that you have to continue to explain yourself is the trick of the enemy. A protest is a protest. A riot is a riot.
That's right.
Not one time did you tell me that you were part of a riot. You said you went to a protest.
I did.
Somebody else started to do things that would symbol rioting, but that's not what you were a part of. That's just a way to devalue what you're in. So then you start explaining, well, well, no, I was at protests. There were people that started rioting. That's their way of moving. That's not my way of moving.
Right. Anyway, my point is that there have been many different angles to try and get the message across. And none of them are accepted.
Right.
Well,
right. That's always the argument is we won't accept your message because we don't like how you're doing it, no matter what's done.
Right. And not only that, somebody I posted a quote on my Facebook page because somebody finally had enough, and I just started saying it. They said, "You don't have the right to tell people how to protest their own genocide.
No.
You stay out of that. We don't need to hear from you on that. This is what happens. You've caused this. And you also, Jabot.
Yeah.
I thought when you said when you hurt a person, you can't tell what the ramifications are going to be. You can't control the response.
If Jazmin and I were in a relationship and I slapped her across the face,
that ain't
in return, she went in the kitchen and stabbed me in the neck with the knife. And I go, what'd you stab me for? I'm not a victim. I slapped her. So what she does in response, I can't dictate.
Right.
That's where we're at. So I peacefully protest. But honestly, when I saw them tearing shit up, I was glad. Because you have a people that's hurting, that have been hurting and telling you what they need for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're continually not listening. And on top of that, you have a leader that's the president that's a flat out openly racist. Now I hear, well, Joe Biden said racist. Look, we all say racist things.
Well, how
we all have racist behavior.
The entire country is
there's a difference in a person that is okay with you raising his awareness and being apologetic, whether he is or not.
Brother.
And somebody that
Brother Jabot, he's going to come back.
Huh?
We got you now. We lost you for a hot minute.
Uh-oh.
Go back to Trump.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. We have a leader now who antagonizes.
You have a president that can be openly racist, and he has supporters that say, oh, well, I have to support him, or he's our president. He's openly racist. And he's not for the betterment of all the people. He's not trying to bring the people together. That's no excuse. So you can't say, I want to change. I want a social justice change. I want to support all people. And that's who you support as the leader. And you just overlook that in the process.
Right.
That's like, you know what? That's like, I'm your friend in public, but at home, we don't speak. And I constantly do things to make your life miserable.
Yeah. When people tell me that, that they are Trump supporters, but that they love me, they're not racist. Like, you're a Trump supporter. How can you support that man and love me? Say those two things in the same breath when I am a Black woman who is gay. Like, there's no place for me in Trump's United States. There's no place for any of us.
Uh-huh.
No, and so the difficult thing I see for white people going forward is constantly feeling like the victim. And rightfully so, in some regards, white people are the victim in a lot of the things that come in terms of race. But I think it's a case-by-case basis. You can only be responsible for yourself. The white people that are here, they were none of the people that were driving the slave ship. Okay? You're not bad just because you happen to be white, born that way, and you benefit from being the majority in this country. However, you have a responsibility to be open when things don't look the way that somebody says they do for them compared to you.
That's
and
right.
To constantly, I would imagine, being white and thinking one particular way, because I think human nature, we do that. We think everybody processes or thinks like we do. So that's how it should be, because that's what I think. So that's what I would think. Don't you hear that often? I would think you would just blah, blah, blah.
They like to say that a lot.
They say that because in their
They
world,
like to say that a lot. White people enjoy saying that.
if I'm white in America, I can live somewhere, anywhere I want. I can live to where I never see black people.
Uh-huh.
And if I do, it's only a couple. We know them. They're down there around by, them.
Well, and if enough of them move to a black neighborhood, you can get rid of the black people.
That's right.
Well, but what you said was important, Jazmin. We can move when we get ready. Black culture, we buy a house, 30-year mortgage, we not moving.
Mm-hmm.
We're there forever. We don't know moving. We worked all our life to get there. White people, got a new job, I'm moving. Well, what do you do? Well, we just go get a new loan. Really? Black people have the experience not being in South Minneapolis. If you look back, there were encumbrances on where we could live at that point in time.
Oh, sure.
We couldn't just go get a loan.
Right.
It didn't matter if you got jobs or if you got, it just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Equifax and FICO that would, computerize this. It was the man in the office in the back room with the little suit on. And you ain't getting it today.
Or tomorrow.
Yeah, because this your credit.
Yeah. So there's a good movie I'd like to tell your audience about called The Banker. It's on Apple iTunes or Apple TV. It's The Banker. Without giving the story, it basically talks about these two black bankers and what they have to do to be successful. That hasn't changed today.
Yeah, black-owned business, you're not gonna get a whole lot different treatment even in a black-owned business.
Nope. You got to have somebody that's white in your circle. And then you're able to move accordingly based upon what your network is able to present to you.
Yes, but the danger we always run is when we allow white people into the equation, you may always come into a situation where you need to address something that is bad for them.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of almost in any given situation. If they're going to get involved, then they're going to use their leverage.
Right.
At some point.
I don't want my white friends to ever think that I'm holding something against them just because they're white. Whatever I think, I'm going to tell you. And the best thing that white people can do, in my opinion, because right now the thing is, well, what should I do?
Oh, right. They all want to know.
Well, that's up to you to find the answer.
Right.
I made a statement that challenging your racist beliefs is like dealing with an addiction. If you go into treatment for an addiction, they don't go in there and give you the magic potion. It's about figuring yourself out and you working through your stuff.
That's right. It's self-reflection. Unpack, Take a look at what you got.
The short answer is to challenge your beliefs and your thinkings.
That's right.
So you can change your behavior. If you just behavior change, okay, I'm not gonna say nigger anymore. Okay, yeah. I'm not gonna whatever it is. That's a behavior fix.
Yes.
It's gonna come out in different ways.
You're right, because I remember when the stamp out the word movement was really big, and they were trying to get rid of the word fag and get people to stop saying it, right?
Right.
And if you went on message boards, you could just you could see people who were like, well, that's fine, but what do we call them now? Yeah. Words are just words. Words are symbols.
Right.
So they're just gonna find a replacement unless you change your beliefs.
Right.
And you know what? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, and for those out there who are watching, who feel like, you know, you're on the right page and you have nothing to unpack, we all do. Like my friends do, my family do. You know how many times I have been told by people who do love me that that they're Blacker than I am, or that, oh, I'm not, you know, because I'm well-spoken, because I'm educated, because I don't do crimes, I don't dress a certain way. Because when you say that I'm an Oreo or that I'm less Black than someone else who is the same skin color than me, what are you saying? What are you saying Black is? Are you saying Black is crime? Are you saying Black is being uneducated, being mean, being nasty? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, that's
well,
that's a very.
My good attributes make me less Black.
Yeah, that's not being Black.
But see,
no,
right,
it's not.
No,
so
it's not.
Like people don't realize that they're being racist, and that stuff's worse to me than someone outright calling me a nigga.
Well, take this, Jazmin. if you take everything that you just said and think, so what is it to be Black? Go back to when you started grammar school and you were taught history and you were taught how the Native Americans, the Indians, were civilized by the colonial times, right? Mm-hmm. You're being taught how to be in America. You're being taught how to be a human being.
That's indoctrination. Yes.
Right. So when you question that and when you say, well, what does it mean to you to be Black? It means you act like me. And that other stuff you do that you brought with you from your culture, well, we like to do that. So when you hear things like, I watch CNBC, and it's mostly a Republican business news channel, but I watch it because I have a vested interest in trying to do things with financial markets, and that's the channel you watch. But I hear a lot of things, and I hear this now: street cred. So they'll bring up an analyst or an investment banker or somebody. He has $50 billion in assets. His street cred is, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. You think they came up with street cred? Then I'll hear, well, let's give a shout out to some. So they like to adapt certain things that they hear, but it's difficult to live and really embrace another culture as being its own individually. So my white friends, I leave open the conversations. We can talk about anything. The only way you're going to grow is if we talk. You can't be afraid to display your insecurities and your lack of education on other people's culture.
There's no other way to learn.
There's no other way to. I compare it to the AIDS pandemic. We thought you could get AIDS from holding hands and kissing. We didn't want to go in the bathroom and sit on the seat because you could get AIDS. As we got education, we realized that was all a myth, and it wasn't the gay people's disease. It's a blood disease.
That's right.
As we got educated. Now you bring up AIDS. Oh, okay, yeah, it exists, but nobody's tripping like they were. Magic Johnson lost friends for the last 20 years. Now you see him, they're hugging him, giving him kisses on the cheek. So I think it's the same thing. Right now, the Black people are the AIDS and the white people is walking around scared. Right now, they've seen so much news, and I don't want to say they. I got Spiffy right there sitting. Correct me when I'm wrong.
No,
I walk into a gas station, a grocery store. Hi, you have a nice day.
Oh yeah,
you didn't say that yesterday.
Well, they're getting friendly. They're getting friendly.
As a matter of fact, Spiffy, as the token melanin challenged person in this conversation, did you have any thoughts that you'd like to share on the things that we've said?
Let
me put you on the spot.
I would say there were some things I wanted to circle back to, but they're not right what we're talking about immediately.
Okay.
And so I don't want to interrupt what's happening right now.
Well, write them down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but if you don't have anything to say right now, let me get a couple things out.
Go right ahead, Michael.
All right. First off, the N-word. Mm-hmm. It aggravates me so much because white people feel if they use that word in substitution, it's like it's a kind or the PC way to get across a concept that should have been dead a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I don't appreciate it. And when people say N-word, the word nigger conjures up. Okay, now you got me thinking about this. You got me thinking about my proposed own wretchedness. Tone and vibration is all we have in the universe. And it's not so much the word you use, but the energy that's connected to it when you say it. Mm-hmm. People don't understand that. Quantum physics is real. Mm-hmm. Quantum entanglement is real. Your words have power.
And words are a symbol.
Spelling.
My opinion right now, and the thing that's the most disruptive for white America, this is my opinion. I don't have any factual basis, just from my observation. Being called a racist when you're white is the new N-word for white.
That's why they get so hopped up when you say
it. This guy that does CrossFit that just lost his contract with Reebok. Mm-hmm. He made some racist comment in reference to George Floyd as a kind of a joke. Twitter went nuts. Reebok heard about it. They were in process of renewing their contract. They said, we're not going to do it now. We're going in another direction. CrossFit guy comes back and said, I apologize. Those remarks, I didn't mean it, blah, blah, blah. and I'm not racist. And those weren't racist remarks. So then it becomes the question.
Who gets to decide what's racist?
So if I'm black and I tell you what you just did was racist, and you tell me it wasn't,
yeah,
we have a new issue. That's it. So
that you want to define for me what is happening to me.
The issue is the definition of racist per se, per situation, per person. So I've had white friends that have told me, yeah, I'm not racist, which, you're probably not all the way in terms of I have a racist foundation where I want to just be this way towards you and that's how I want you to be. You have racist behavior. So when I call you out on it, I'm specific. And then you tell me that wasn't racist. And you don't understand when I tried to explain when you ask me. We got a problem.
Yeah.
So it's about definition. Now, what's racist and what's not when people are challenged on it. Have any of you guys had that?
The challenge of what is racist?
No, I'm clear on what it is. People that have been presented or been called upon behavior that has been racist, and they struggle to identify that's what they did. They defend rather than.
Happens all the time on my page. Go ahead. Sorry, Jazmin.
Oh, no, that's okay. I've had plenty of situations like that too, but I had something happen to me last summer that was a little different. One of the people in my closer friend group and it seems so simple, right? We were all at this cafe. We had our seats. I went outside to vape with like 2 or 3 of the people. And when I came back in, she had moved into the seat that I was in. That's not racist, okay? But I asked her politely many times, please move. You know, I was sitting there, I'd like my seat back. We're adults, you know? I asked many times and I started to get mad because she just wouldn't look at me and kept saying, no, 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 I'm sitting here now. And I got hot. I got hot to the point where I pulled the stool out from under her. Now, it was a high stool, so when I pulled it out from under her, she was just standing, okay? She was all right. I didn't hurt her, but I yanked that out from under her. And
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
I was surrounded by white folks who, you know, I like stew in that awkwardness, feel free. And then I explained to each and every one of them, like, I have had people, it may seem like something small, but you need to understand what was going through my head. I have had privileged white folk think that they can take things from me without consequence and just, I have to deal with it my whole life. And if I don't stick up for myself, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, nobody else is going to do it. And I got hot. Right? It just brings me back to elementary school.
So, Mike and Spiffy, you can help me with this. So imagine you play an instrument, right? And say, let's just take piano, because everybody kind of knows what a piano is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you learn this is how you play the piano. This is how you make sounds. This is how it goes. That's you know, everybody has to press the keys on there to get a sound out of the piano. You have to add some kind of pressure to them ebony and ivories to get a sound, right? All got the same rules to make the piano sound. Then imagine you live in the United States and you're an American. Everybody's supposed to have the same rules. But there's a group of people that made the rules, that applies the rules, they govern the rules, they change the rules, and you still have to abide by the rules. You never are part of that other process. That's the best way I can describe what Black America looks like, because you won't see white people protesting because IBM won't allow the hourly workers to have 2 15s and a 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll call a meeting. They'll go in the boardroom. The representatives there. We met starting January 1. You'll have your 2 15s and a 30. Black people have to protest.
Yes.
Because that's the only way there's attention drawn to the situation, and protests are looked at as negative or law. They've even tried to change laws to prevent protests, but not knowing that their very own constitution that we had no part of protects that type of speech.
That's right.
So it's like,
well, someone, right? You have the right to peaceful protest as long as it's before 8 p.m.
Right. Well, we shouldn't have to continuously explain our rights, which are the same as everybody else's rights. And that's the constant struggle. That's the constant frustration. And that's the boiling point that's going to, I think, keep happening. And everybody likes to call the millennials the dumb generation. I say everybody. The people I know call the millennials just because they don't do things the same. After this, I have a different respect and regard for the millennial generation. I think the millennial generation is the modern day baby boomer generation. I think, you know, the hippies and what the baby boomers went through, where they were just ready to challenge the status quo. we need the millennials doing. They're more entitled as the foundation people are. They're like, well, why not? So if you told them something like, well, you can't do that because they don't let black people do it, they'd be like, what? And even their white counterparts would be like, come on, what do you mean, bro? You know what I mean? And I think that same like cavalier in some regard is necessary to continue to really change the land make that we have. So I got to take back some of the things I said about millennials. I think they really have, there's a big number of them, and they have the ability to make good change just because in their DNA, how they've been brought up, they didn't have to get, you know, the parents we had that lived in the 60s.
Sure.
You know, they didn't have to get those grandparents that lived pre-60s where it was even worse. You know, we really didn't kick into being okay with drinking in the fountains we wanted and going to the bathrooms we wanted really till the 80s, because, you know, it takes some years for laws to kick in.
Just because the laws change don't mean that society goes right along with it.
Right. You got those detractors that add them with their rules, and that's what we're keeping down here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, the U.S. is still segregated. It just looks different.
Yeah.
I had one other point I wanted to make earlier, but I don't know if it's. No, I'm going to go for it anyway.
Yeah, make your point.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was pertaining to, but somebody said something that made me think about it. It's that a lot of the tropes that white people have about us have been sold to us. Like we often emulate what we've been shown us to be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that the other thing that we're dealing with right now is that if we don't maintain the space in society that we've been given, then white people don't understand their place in the universe.
Yes.
They understand themselves in relation to where we've been placed. We are the watermark. And I think that's really a frightening notion for white America. Like, well, what are they if we decide we are going to define who we are now?
Because I can't keep up with you then, and then I can't control you.
Exactly.
If I make women think that they need to look like the Maybelline, if I make men think that they don't look right if they have their natural hair and dreads, and they're scary, right?
And
if I have no television programs up until recent that don't reflect positive functioning families that just do normal stuff that happen to be of color, then you're never going to see or find your place, and then you'll stay in your place.
That's right.
You know, so typically, I think we've been wearing a mask every day. We buy filler, we do stuff to our eyebrows, we make sure we don't have this much hair here and this much hair there, all to look like this. Because certain things are necessary in our professional workforce in order to be able to do it.
Well, and you mentioned that the tropes about Black people were sold to us, and I'm a testament to that. When I was young, and that comes back to how we really need to support each other in our community too. Because I remember, you know, when I was a kid, being a mixed race girl, I wasn't accepted by either.
Right.
And then I remember thinking that Black was a certain way because I was told that by Black people.
Right.
Oh, you know, Black people don't use lotion. Black people use oil, or you know, you said I would say, you know, a $3 word, and I was young. It's like, you sound like your white mom. I'm like, it was garbage, and I'm so ashamed to admit it, but there was actually, I remember specifically a time when I was young and my own sister was saying stuff like that to me, and it made me feel so bad about myself for not being Black enough.
Right.
That I was like, when I grow up, I'm going to move to the ghetto, and that way my kid will be Black enough because they'll have grown up in the ghetto. That's what I told myself when I was in elementary school.
You were surviving.
Yeah.
And it I was listening to the pastor say it the other day, how we were finally able to take off the masks that we've been wearing. You can be yourself and not get punished for it anymore. But part of survival, it's like the circuit preacher. In the olden days, they had the circuit preacher that would go around to the different plantations and speak a positive message to the people.
Yeah.
And really what he would be doing is he would meet and get underhanded benefits from the massa. And his job was to keep the people calm.
Sure.
So they could continue to be enslaved. Give them an uplifted message to keep them in their place.
Now, see, I want to go somewhere right now, but
Go ahead.
I don't know if it's the time.
You can, but I think that same message just became a new medium, and our very own people relay that message to us. So that's why I say again, like that police issue, that may be the perfect solution. I don't know. I just don't want to repeat the same systematic and systemic things that got us in this pickle, because a lot of things we only know based upon what we've experienced.
Yes.
That's
Spiffy, you got anything to say now?
Well, it's always circling back because I don't ever want to interrupt anybody that's spitting wisdom. One thing I did want to add that was from right before Jazmin told her amazing story of pulling the stool out from under the white lady. That might be in the highlights rule of
yes
of today's episode. When we were talking about racism and how white people hate being called out on racism, I think there's been this huge misinformation campaign, and it may not be deliberate or direct, that we think that racism requires intent. And so if I don't intend to be racist, then I couldn't possibly be racist, because
that's a good point.
And so, as you know, that I think is what happens a lot. It's not in terms of, wait a second, I need to examine why I said or did the thing that's coming across as racist. It's why I didn't mean to directly or overtly offend or belittle or in any way, directly harm Black people with this action or this comment. So it couldn't possibly be.
Right.
Instead of looking at, wait a second, that I may not have intended, but that is something that still affects, and that's one of the things that I had to learn, is that, racism, and for that matter, white privilege, does not require intent. It's something that that can happen or can be a part of you, and it is in fact is really a part of all of us, because American culture, as much as it's Black culture, is also white racist culture. When we look at American beauty standards, when we look at what what the entertainment industry or the media considers to be beautiful, or when you look at what considers to be, like she talks about, what's white versus well-spoken versus it's something that's ingrained in all of us. And that was one thing. And then
can I add on that before you move?
Go.
Somebody said to me recently, I heard somebody say, racism exists in the unchecked, unchallenged normal. It's always in plain sight. But if you don't learn to identify it, like it's as if racists identify themselves as bad people. Oh, I'm a bad person. I'm a racist. Like they got a snidely whiplash, mustache or something. Like they got to play villain to be a racist.
Why you think KKK wears helmets?
Well,
if they wanted everybody to know, they would just be out there.
Oh, you mean not helmets? What they call them?
Hoods.
Hoods.
Hey, you know what I mean to say.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Don't be messing with me. So yeah, I got you, Spiff. Sorry, go ahead. Continue, man.
No, that was no.
That's a good point, Spiff.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought it up. It's that I posted a link in there. I don't even know if it'll come up. I thought I hit enter, but there's this book called White Fragility. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism.
Is that Robin DiAngelo?
Yep.
I like her.
Yeah, it's a great book. And also it's hard for people to, it's a lot of times hard for white people to admit for some reason that even if they're not actively being racist, that like you are benefiting from systemic racism. Like, why are you so afraid? I would like to put it out there if anyone can tell me. Like, because it's not you as an individual's fault that you're benefiting from systemic racism, but that doesn't mean that you have to close your eyes to it and not be willing to admit it.
You know what I think? One of the hard things that may be difficult for white people is feeling like this is something that only applies to me. So like, I'm bad and I'm the only one that's bad. I'm the only one doing this. And my natural reaction is to defend, you know? And I mean, I've said it before a million times. If you were brought up in this society, in these United States, regardless what color you are, you have racist behavior, period.
Well, and whether or not you're, like Spiffy was saying, intend to be racist, like people enjoy the comforts that they get as a result of it. And people don't want to get uncomfortable. People are all for change until it starts affecting their daily lives, you know, and then it's another story.
Speaking of that, I just wanted to say that it's also my wife reminded me the other day, but I also heard someone else say recently that the Montgomery bus strike, basically, or the
boycott.
Yeah, that took 381 days, and we know this is going to boil back down to economics.
Yes.
Eventually, we're back to how we allocate our resources and who's living off of us, who's going to miss Black and people of color's money when it ain't available for them. Also, July 7th, you know about that, right? Blackout, we got that covered.
Yeah.
Go ahead and cover it again.
July 7th. Go ahead, hit them with it, Spiff. I'll hand it off to you.
Okay. Well, this is something that Michael and my wife and many others brought to my attention. I've been posting it on social media. Make sure you share. It's pretty simple. Just July 7th. Anybody who supports the type of causes that we're talking about, or you could say also is either Black or supports Black people, is not supposed to spend any money on July 7th. They're supposed to protest with our dollars by keeping them on that day. That's all. That's the extent that I know about it. Am I missing anything, Michael?
No, I guess I'll just tag on with that and say that it's going to, any change is going to require sacrifice. Yeah. It's going to be a hard road. But the reality is white people can't respect the line we don't draw.
Listen, say that one more time for the people in the back.
White people can't respect the line we don't draw.
So this is just a day. Let me show you how companies report their numbers. So you talk about not spending your money for a day. Let's keep this in perspective.
Okay.
We used to have just Black Friday, right? And Black Friday, everybody was waiting to go shopping on that day after Thanksgiving, right?
Sure.
Since the evolution of e-commerce, Amazon's so big, they created a Cyber Monday. So in that one day, everything that's made with everybody in the United States going shopping on that Friday, they do like 10 times as much on one day. So when you say that change and drawing that line, I think COVID, you can take a whole lot of examples. Do you know how the U.S. literally bankrupted 50% of the retailers, and a lot of them you're not going to see for a few more months. But you got to think, there's only 3: Costco, Walmart, and Target. You're getting your stuff at one of those places right now.
Yep.
Okay, so when you say stop spending money and making a real change, like that Montgomery boycott and the thing that they did with the garbage, for that to work, it had to be consistent, and they had to sacrifice. It hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you mean to tell me they can pull the plug and tell you to stay at home and all work shuts down, and we go through what we just did, and we can't assemble and stop spending for even more than a day to really make change? It's possible. What it should have enlightened us to see, if you guys do it collectively, it can be done. Because it's like the NFL. If the NFL has 90% black, if 90% of them took a knee, there wouldn't be a Colin Kaepernick that's the class clown. That's how they see him. It would be the whole NFL. Now we got to do something, because what are we going to do now? Right?
People want to support, but they don't want to be inconvenienced.
That's
exactly.
right.
So when I went to the protest early and Jazmin went late at night, they were equally as necessary.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Her going at the time she went is no less important than me going during the day, because that constant presence is the thing that's going to sustain it. They got to see kids getting maced in the face and innocent people getting shot with rubber bullets. You know what I mean? Amongst the detractors.
Yeah.
All that is what it. Look, the only reason why Selma worked is because finally they saw white people and white kids and white women getting beat up.
Right.
How are you going to do that to our own? It was like, oh, okay.
Well, like the old white dude that just got pushed down.
Yeah. That was a big thing now.
Some people who were probably holdouts saw that, and they probably went, well, wait a minute.
Yes.
If they'll do that to him, you will do that to an old white dude?
Well, I'll point out that, and I should have said this earlier, that when I was down on, what was it? Hennepin Lake, I think it was. And we had it was one of the times that we were out there with the van full of supplies. We were doing, the first aid and all that. We had the van clearly marked that it was water and medical, right? Mm-hmm. But the National Guard shot 4 gas canisters direct. That was us.
By Pimentos? Is that what you were?
Yeah, right on Hennepin Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had our van, and it was labeled water and medical. They shot 4 canisters directly at our van.
Oh.
I believe it was the guard, but
just like they were flattening the car tires.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But damn it, I'm losing my train of thought here.
All right, we've been on for a hot minute, and we've been going all over.
Yeah.
I will take this moment to also get back to what I heard. Now, I'm not a fan of everything that he says and does, but Charlemagne the God said something interesting on TV earlier. He said, you get what you demand, and you encourage what you tolerate. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But yeah, that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And economic action is necessary to force legislation. I don't know what other way has been proven to really work.
Here, keep this in mind.
Uh-huh.
We've been shut down since March. Most states in the union, right? Most people are out of work. Unemployment is at between 14 and 20%, depending on where you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today, the NASDAQ hit an all-time high. So common sense would say, well, things are bad, nobody's working, the stock market shouldn't be doing great. All the money you lost back in February and March when things started tanking, you started getting news reports. The market's down 1,000. Market's up 1,000. Market's down another 2,000. Market had to halt the circuit breaker because it was down so far. You got to think, people weren't even working on the exchange. They were working from home. The market is at an all-time high. So what does that tell you about the money? The Fed Reserve is pumping the money. They're going to make sure they support the market. Okay? They're going to make sure that they wanted money sent to everybody that was out of work. They said there's going to be fraud. We don't care. Get it in their pockets so they spend it. We don't care if they're buying groceries or buying from the weed man. We need money being spent.
That's right.
So it's out there. We can do something. They anticipate that money being spent in retail. They expect women getting their hair and their nails done, going to the mall, buying that new dress that they ain't been able to get. They expect us to buy cars. They expect us to start traveling again.
Yeah.
If you don't, and you just sit on it like they do, you have disruption. The reason why oil is in a crisis is because Tesla and Obama. Obama opened up oil, the fracking that takes place. Tesla makes electric cars. It's disrupted the industry. Tesla was running cash flow negative. They said they can do nothing. They're never going to be bigger than Ford Ford is this far from bankrupt.
Yeah.
So when you talk about spending the money and being unified in what you do and where you go, if we all went to the co-ops and stopped going to Costco and Cub, they wouldn't know what to do. We did.
Yeah.
If we did the farmers markets and whatnot and went directly to the suppliers and did it like that, wouldn't be Tyson Foods.
Absolutely.
So
they don't really know how much they need us.
So with everything that we're saying, and if you can relay it to the protests, one thing I did notice was there was a lot of absent leadership, which exists. Some had it, some did not. And I think it's the same thing with stuff now. Like, we have a way to mobilize that's more empowering than anything ever before.
Sure.
But there's like a lack of like leadership.
Every movement needs focus.
Yeah.
You need somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I would agree that there's no de facto. And but it's I'm really concerned that as Black people we will squander this opportunity. I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just being honest. Mm-hmm. And I'm also concerned about what's going to happen when these 4 dudes go scot-free.
Yep.
Like, I got to traverse that.
The nation will burn.
Just so I don't overreach when the moment comes.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think about it now. That's what it means to be Black. Is to consider these things before they show up.
Yes.
I have to compress my feelings and my emotions and get my mind right before I step out my front door. Because I don't know what one of these white people might be saying to say to me today. Fortunately, I work in an environment where, my word is respected and ain't nobody coming at me any kind of way. I'm privileged in that respect. Mm-hmm. But I mean, on the way at Starbucks, it could happen anytime. And I know that if I snap, any number of possibilities, the consequences are dire.
I heard there was a question, Mike, and Spiffy, you could jump in too, that said, what age were you when the cops pulled a gun on you?
Ooh.
And I could answer that quick, easy. I think I was 12 or 13.
Okay.
I was at some party it wasn't no rough party. I was 12 or 13. And it was nighttime. The police were called because somebody didn't want the kids to be having a party. And I was outside and I came running around the back. I see a flashlight with a shotgun. And I'm like, hey, don't, I start, it's only me. You know?
Yes.
But pre that, there was the conversations at home. This is what is likely to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I can countless number of times of being pulled over. I mean, as soon as I got a scooter and driver's license, but to you guys, can you recall the age you were when you got a gun pulled on you by the police? If at all? All my friends can.
It's never happened to me. I don't know what it's like. I don't know how I would react. I don't like guns, but certain friends of ours keep saying, hey,
you might have to get you one
to shoot. I got a piece for you. I don't know if the day will come that I willfully will walk in, but I mean, we've been talking about it around the house and whatnot, but guns make us nervous. But, you know, certain people we know are like, hey, listen, the only place you should never be afraid in your own home.
Imagine this, Jazmin and myself being in front of the White House, protesting, holding signs up. And the government's response is to send the military to attack us for peaceful protests.
Uh-huh.
That makes us Syria. That's what our president did.
Yeah.
So when you say what's going to happen then, the people start shooting back at the military.
Well,
if you ain't got a gun, you can't shoot.
Here's the thing that's scary about it. I mean, there's a lot that's scary about it. I like guns. Okay, I like shooting guns. I've always I'm from Wisconsin Dells. Okay, and we would go out and we would throw some bullets. Okay, but when I was downtown, not 3 feet away from me, there were 2 white men holding very large rifles saying, all right, it's time to go home now, y'all. Now, do you think if any of you and any black men out there were holding those guns, they'd still be here?
Heck no.
No, but they can stand there comfortably.
Because those are not their rules. Those are our
rules. It's not.
Yeah.
No, they were rules that were created specifically for us. Like I said earlier, right? They didn't care about gun control until the Panthers took up arms and they were like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't allow guns in cities.
Yeah.
Because that's where the black folks is.
Exactly. Now you're segueing over into the Ahmaud Arbery. The thing that drove me crazy was that these white dudes really thought they had the authority to tell him freeze.
Well, the other question is, how many other times have they done that?
Oh, yeah.
That's not something that they just all of a sudden did this one time.
You expect the dude to freeze? First off, you're not an official anything. But you're also waving a gun in his face. You're telling him to...
Did you know that the dude that shot the video, before they had shot him, he had ran him down in his car? He had hit, don't quote me. I believe it said so before the video started, they had been chasing him and he had chased him in his car and ran him into a ditch.
I didn't know.
So he had been running, fighting for his life for longer than the few seconds that we saw.
And the idiot thought that the videotape was going to exonerate them. That's how stupid that dude was.
Well, now you know, Trump supporters are the uneducated white men from rural areas.
Okay.
I know my rights.
Jabot, you can say what you want to say. You a special guest, but we generally, I'm kind of leaning my focus off of Trump. I feel like he's mostly a distraction, and he's just like, he's like the monkey with the cymbals. He's out there. It's really his handlers. It's the people behind him.
You're right. I would agree with you.
You know, unfortunately, they don't have a face. They're in the darkness somewhere.
I agree.
But
I agree.
Every time I look at Trump, I'm like, you're just a diversion, man.
Yes.
I'm back.
It's the art of war. It's everything going on that we don't see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Legislation.
Yeah.
My goodness. But I want to actually, can we get to this? Because we're about to wind down. But Jesse Spriggs' question here. What organizations do you all think it's most important to donate to right now, especially in Minneapolis, but any group you feel strongly about? Anybody?
So they raised good money on Lake Street on the south side. I know the north side is still kind of struggling.
Okay. Jesse lives in California, so.
Let me look at what I got. What I'd like to do is post, after the fact, I could certainly post some links.
Okay.
Because I do know some places, but I don't have like the specific names on hand.
Okay. Well, Spiffy,
right now
to be in cooperation with
Jazmin
about this and make sure that the people get the proper information. Yeah.
I will absolutely put them in the comments. Okay. And there were some also in the comments of one of our previous discussions. But I wanted to specifically see if Greg and Jazmin had any specific organizations that they supported, and then we can also bring up the ones that we talked about previously. I'll put everything in the comments. So we will it'll be available after the live is done. You know. So there were a couple other questions. Let me go back up and get to these questions. I also want to answer Greg's question that he asked me real quick. About whether or not the police have ever drawn a gun on me. And the short answer is yes, but only when I was with Black people. And I can't remember if we touched on it on a Facebook discussion or if it was in our last episode, but I've talked about how the police treat me differently when I'm by myself versus when I'm with other white people.
I think that was a conversation you and I had.
That was a conversation you and I had. We'll definitely
not on live. So go through that, man. Tell me, how do they treat you differently based on who's in your car?
Absolutely. So if it's just me, there's a good chance first of all, they're not going to draw their gun. There's a good chance I'll get away with a warning. They'll be real polite and friendly, and they'll call me sir. They'll come to the driver's side. And if it's me, it's the same if it's me and with other white people in the car. If it's me and my wife, or me and other Black people in the car, then more often they're going to be ruder. I'm almost always going to get a ticket. They'll oftentimes come to the passenger side instead of the driver's side. They'll ask for everybody in the car's ID. I've never had that happen when it's just been white people. Only when it's Black people in the car, they want to see everybody's ID and run everybody's ID. Never been asked out of the car when it was just me or just white people. Never had a gun pulled when it was just me and just white people. I remember saying on Facebook that if you're white and you can't relate to this experience, it's because you don't have enough Black friends.
Well,
right. because the other white people that I know that have close Black people in their lives can relate to the same experience where you're treated differently. You don't get the whole white person treatment if there's Black people. You get part of the Black person treatment, and it's allowed me to see a little window into what it's like for people that live with that every second of every day.
Sure. Greg, how you coming with the Jabot? You got any references for us?
For the fundraiser or for that?
Yeah.
What's for
the organizations.
Oh, I just sent Spiffy to his inbox.
Okay.
I don't know how to put it on here. Okay. I usually have a tech working this stuff, and he's usually white. So.
I'll be your white tech.
So I gotta
certainly have the qualifications.
I gotta stick to the status quo. I gotta do what I know. I don't know how to work this thing.
Okay, well, yeah, as long as you get.
I sent you something for the West Broadway.
All right,
you got it.
It's going up. Yeah,
I'm working on it. For some reason,
so the South Minneapolis one exceeded their goal. This one still hasn't done it. and they need some work. One thing to keep in mind, so in North Minneapolis, they have a Cub Foods that replaced the Target that moved out of there because they said we're not going to be over here because it's not financially advantageous for us to stay. Right. Cub was reluctant to. We lobbied. We worked hard to get Cub to be in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know if Cub will even come back now. So there's only one grocery store. I think it's an Asian-owned grocery store in North Minneapolis now. And there's another co-op that's on the end, but right in the main part where you got people, you have elderly and people that can't go any other place. They now don't have a grocery store. So, those kind of things are a big deal. So this fundraiser hasn't met its goal yet, but it's out there, and hopefully, they do what they do. But
that's a whole topic for another time, talking about food deserts and how a lot of times poor communities and communities of color don't have access to healthy food and grocery stores and things of that nature. That's a whole nother example of systematic racism.
Right.
I do just want to say one other thing that I've been meaning to say, but I just didn't find the time. But I think it's very important because I've seen a lot of people out there on the social medias who only had one comment about everything that's going on, and many times it was something along the lines of if you agree with the rioting and destruction, then you can unfriend me right now. And if your only comment is not on the lives being lost, but on the property that's being destroyed, I would just like to remind you that people getting fed up to the point of violence. Now, that's not me, and that's most people. All right. Most people were very peaceful, but I do want to remind that people getting fed up to the point of violence is why you have a 40-hour work week. It's why, why you have weekends, why you only have to work 8 days.
Right. Absolutely.
The second Civil War that no one ever talks about.
Yeah.
Coal miners got fed up. Yeah. And fed up to the point that even though it was still a very, very racist time, the blacks and whites fought together because they were tired of being worked to death.
Oh yeah.
Tired of being taken advantage of, and we're tired.
Yeah. And that's also a byproduct of now. Everybody's tired. They're tired. The other races are tired of seeing us in this predicament.
What you highlight is basically kind of back to what we said before. Whether it's 9/11 and the hijackers, it's not a matter of if it's right or wrong. It's a matter of people being hurt, people feeling like they're not being heard, and they're doing what they comprehend in their mind to do. Yeah. I wasn't brought up to do certain things in a certain way. I was brought up to do things like this. So that's why I don't do them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't say he was taught to do things that way and he has a different outcome. But, yeah. I mean, no, it's not good. Things get destroyed. But I think as I started this segment, and I'll say it one more time, humanity becomes lost in the process of the things that we do. And if we kept humanity as the focus, meaning whether we're calling somebody names or whether we're harming somebody's person as a human being versus structures and stuff.
Or looking on while it's happening.
Yeah, we could get to, what we're actually doing. You know, people felt George Floyd across all color barriers simply because you could see the human in it. Everybody knows what it's like when a child is calling for their mother, when they're in distress. You can call your mom and your mom can hear your voice over all the kids and know if it's hers or not. Everybody knows what it's like when, you know, you can't breathe, or when you're suffering and you need help. Everybody could see it on there and hear his pleas and see the humanness in it and know that the act being perpetrated was inhumane. So humanity doesn't have a color. Humanity has a all-encompassing innate worth to it.
That's right. And we know that already. We're waiting for those people to catch up.
Right. Yeah. And we put things in our way as blockers so we can stay one way. You know what I mean? It was a sick, inhumane individual that could think of the concept of torture and stacking human beings on each other on a boat for a voyage where they would die just to get them to work for free.
And listen, I don't want to take it to that level.
I mean, but it's the reason why it's relevant is because just like in the Bible, when it talks about Jacob and his son Joseph and the things that carried down, those same generational intergenetics carry through. That same way of act keeps following along through a process. It's a continuum. So when you see somebody that can put their knee on somebody's neck until they squeeze the breath out of them, that act is no less inhumane than stacking a whole bunch of people just like him on a boat.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we could run down the history of, you start with the Middle Passage, but and you can go chronologically next to slave masters selling their own biracial children.
Yeah.
That's a part of it too. It's like, where is the humanity in that? How can you even, your blood is running through this child's veins.
Yeah.
And because it's mixed with other blood.
I'm not perfect, but I could care less if Spiffy was white, if Jazmin was gay, if you was black. At the end of the day, we're all human.
Right.
And that's where it's at. We're not animals. We're not plants. We're not birds or frogs. We're all humans.
Right.
You know what I mean? And our individuality is what makes us special, not what makes us a threat.
We just want the same thing that was promised to everyone else. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one other thing.
I don't need VIP. I just need everybody to get the same shit.
Yes. That's it. Ain't nobody asking for extra. We're just saying, if your line's here, I'll let my line be here.
Yeah.
Don't subject me to anything you wouldn't subject yourself to.
No, protect all women and children. That means all. Protect all the same way. If you're gonna pull over little Johnny, pull over little Ethan.
And that's the thing. We're not even asking for reparations. We're not even asking for like a leg up because they got a head start.
Really? Yeah.
Just treat us the same now.
You see the young woman on the end of the what's the dude's name? Oliver.
John Oliver. Yeah, the Kimberly Jones.
But man, she was like, "You're lucky." What did she say exactly? She said something about you're lucky. We're asking for equality and not for revenge. I'm like, ooh, oh Lord,
yeah,
but what people want, it changes depending on the results that you get.
Yes, I agree. I think we've come to a point in the program where we can probably adjourn. Dan Spiffy Neuman.
We can. There was several other questions that I wanted to.
One more before I'm signing off.
Okay. I had one question earlier that was
You
in
gotta
the
let him know where the line's drawn there, Jabot. We gotta tell the man what you're willing to do. Amen.
But I had a question specifically earlier in response to something Greg said that I wanted to ask both Jazmin and Greg.
Okay.
When he was talking about, it was right before this point when we were talking about the protests, versus becoming riots and other things. And so what the narrative that the media has been portraying, which has changed pretty much day by day. But originally it was the protests are peaceful. Then the protests are no longer peaceful, and it's Black Lives Matter or people associated with Black Lives Matter and or Black people doing it. Then it was, okay, so the Black Lives Matter and associated protests are peaceful, but there are these white instigators that are coming in from Antifa and other things. Then it was, okay, it's the KKK, and there have been so many different narratives.
Who does the media think? What does the media think Antifa stands for? Because it's not a white supremacist group.
No,
it stands for anti-fascist. We don't have to get into that, but they catch a lot.
So the question that I wanted to ask, and I wanted to specifically hear from Jazmin and Greg in terms of people that have been down there and seen. I know Jazmin touched on it earlier, that you would have peaceful protests, and then you would have, usually it would be a young white kid, or not a kid per se, it would be a young white, young adult that would start by throwing water bottles, and that's how it would devolve.
I will expand upon that though, because what would happen is people of color and Caucasian people who are out there to support them would immediately call them out and say, you need to stop. That's not what we're here for. Is this, or look around here. Do you belong here? Is this your community? Because you throw things and we will get shot. So when I did see that, I saw people who were peacefully trying to stop them and calling them out with words.
And see, no one has reported on that ever. That's not anything.
So earlier in the day, the only time I saw something of that nature was the first march from 38th in Chicago to the 3rd precinct. Because I didn't march all the way down there. I drove my car, and then after we left 38th, I met them down there to continue the rally. So I was there before they got there with people that were, putting water up and whatnot. And there were 2 guys that threw rocks and shattered that window before the protesters even showed up. And the dude said, what are you doing? He said, we're not doing that. That's exactly what happened. And, they looked silly. And then that was it. And I didn't see anything other than that. I would hear the news. And the interesting thing with the news is they don't know who the detractors were. They would just hear things periodically, and then they would just report it. Mm-hmm. So when they would say protest turns riot, I was never in there. I was at all these places, and I cataloged them. They're on my page. I took pictures and videos throughout the whole way. And the black umbrella guy that you're talking about with the pizza guy, the guy with the pizza worked with my daughter, and he did have the hammer and the gas mask and the umbrella. That's real. Those people, it's the perfect storm, because especially when it's not organized, and then you got high emotions and people want to do things everywhere, so they just show up. It's the perfect place for somebody to make chaos. And I think you had a few that infiltrated the system and tried to take away from what it was, but it wasn't possible. And when the news turns from, peaceful protests to riots, the protest was a riot, and they try to blend the two together. They're very different. A protest isn't a riot. A riot is a riot. A protester is not a looter. A looter is a looter and a thief. You
Well,
know what I mean? I could walk by 10 banks right now with the vault wide open. I'm going to keep on walking.
Also, looting and riots happen when teams win big games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
that's all in good fun. Oh, it's a lot of damage, but they're rowdy.
What was that? But they're just guys will be guys, you know.
White boys will be white boys.
You got at our most vulnerable points, like this one, the most negativity can seep into play. When you listen, brothers didn't burn up that post office and the Native American Center that's been there since 1970 with artifacts in it. That didn't happen. Yeah. You saw the kids riding around in the back of the post office, getting in the trucks, just tearing them up just for sport.
Yeah.
They're all on camera. I watched the video.
All right. Well, my computer is running out of juice. So you better wrap it up.
Ron is laughing.
Well, I want to thank everybody for participating this week. There's so much to talk about here. We could go for another 2 hours, but Michael's computer is running out of juice. I want to personally thank Jazmin and Greg for joining us. Next week, we have someone who has been in a similar position in the Los Angeles protests, and so everybody should definitely tune in then. That's going to be real interesting. There's definitely, we'll try and see. There was a couple questions for Michael and myself dealing with music. We'll throw them on a different episode because this has definitely been a long 2.25 hours. Anything anybody else want to say to close out?
I'll plug my pluggables. You can find me on Instagram at @that_black_lesbian.
Well,
okay.
All right.
I'm adding you right now. Greg, anything you want to say?
Well, you can like my fan page at Marak Jabot. I'll send you the link. New music we got working on that should be out as soon as I can get my musicians out of COVID.
Oh, see, man.
But we got some new music, both inspirational and some funk, R&B, soul, pop stuff. So other than that, ain't nothing changed but the date.
What about you?
Well, I think this is a very productive discussion. I guess time will tell. People will keep commenting and telling us what we did wrong or said wrong or what we did right and said right. And ultimately, we're going to keep doing what we do anyway because we're doing this for us,
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Spiffy,
Spiffy, do you send them a link to where they can ask questions after the fact if they want to, and then?
Absolutely. You can still comment on this video on Facebook, and we can all see it and reply. And if there's any questions that are specifically for someone, I'll make sure, like if I see one that's for Greg, I'll try to remember to tag Greg, even though he may or may not see it on his own. I'll try my best to keep an eye on him. And otherwise they can tune in next week if they have something for me or Michael, and hopefully we won't run out of time quite so quickly. But it's a
hot issue.
What'd you say?
I said it's a hot issue.
Man, there's I'm impressed at how much ground we covered and yet how much ground there is yet to cover.
Well, all right. Well, on that note, I'm about to exit. Thank you so much for tuning in, all of y'all. I don't know how many. Yes. Let me see your fist now.
Can I do it?
With your black wife. That's right. Put your fist up, brother. All right. Solidarity.
One.
All right, then.